What's going on, everyone? The Arid Lore is back. Welcome back to another Walking Dead review vlog. This one is going to be for The Walking Dead Season 11, Episode 10, entitled New Haunts. I'm staying on the normal release schedule for these episodes, so I won't be doing the week in advance via AMC Plus, although I know a lot of people will probably watch and see scenes from the episode online, with them being early. But I figured that it makes more sense just to do this on the regular release schedule, just with how I've been uploading videos so far. So, New Haunts is the name of this episode, and it's probably one of the most bizarre episodes of The Walking Dead I've seen in a very long time, just because it's such a tonality shift from what we're typically used to in The Walking Dead. If you think about the in the woods, trudging through, treacherous terrain, trying to take down walkers that are around every other corner. Maybe there's raiders and other marauder-type enemies, and especially since the past couple of episodes we've been dealing with the Reapers as a marauder-type enemy. There's just been a lot of get-your-hands-dirty kind of stuff going on, and that's what we're used to in The Walking Dead. I mean, it wouldn't be the show if, those elements weren't in there. And so that's the thing that we're accustomed to in all things Walking Dead. But this episode, we have a massive time jump of about a month, because when we see the start of this episode, it says 30 days, like day 30 in the Commonwealth. And that's a month, a freaking month into when Eugene and the Commonwealth soldiers arrived at the end of the previous episode. And so it's such a, holy shit, things picked up. And it's interesting that we don't see the transition. Like, if you guys remember when we first got to Alexandria, way back in Season 5, there was the whole period where there was, can we trust these people? What types of people are these? They seem nice, the community seems nice, but is there something, what's under the surface that's the issue? And so you go through all of the scenes from the multiple characters who have doubts, but we skip that entirely. We had Lance Hornsby's speech at Alexandria to everybody about what the Commonwealth was basically, selling them. And, now, and then from the previous episode, we saw a even larger time jump where Daryl is a Commonwealth soldier marching with an army outside of Hilltop. And there's a brief verbal confrontation between Maggie and Daryl, and we don't know what that's going to entail. I'm assuming that'll be like a mid-season finale or the episode 16 finale or something towards the end of this batch of episodes for part 2 of our 3-part finale for all of The Walking Dead. But it's interesting to see the characters just so quickly adjusted. And I like the move. I think I like the move more than I don't like the move. The reason for that is with the number of episodes, and I've always said this as an issue with just the show in general, with, the limited number of episodes we have marching towards, the finality of The Walking Dead later this year in Season 11. I've always said that that number of episodes has been an issue. And I just hope that they have enough character development and time to devote to the Commonwealth, in addition to possibly needing to wrap up other story arcs. For example, obviously there's the mysteriousness around, Michonne, Rick, the whole CRM thing. Does the Commonwealth know the CRM? These are things I've talked about in previous vlogs. I had a larger discussion with Jeff from the Walking Dead world, who's my top co-op collaborative Walking Dead partner. And we've discussed a lot about what's going on with the Rick, the other elements in the Walking Dead universe that are separate from the show, just in the interest of the show ending. So, to go back to the episode, I appreciate the move that it jumped so quickly into, what's happening. Um, because everyone has like pre-established jobs already. For example, Magna is a server. There's a party at the end of this episode where she's serving wine, and there's a brief moment where she looks at Yumiko, and it's really awkward because it's basically like it was before the apocalypse, where one is in a lower. Essentially, what the Commonwealth is a caste system, and people get jobs purely based on what they did before. That seems to be the case. I don't know if they've dived into any additional details, but it seems very much like what people did before. They get in. That's that whole interview process, and then they just do that here. And that's another thing we skipped. Now that I'm thinking about it, we actually skipped the interview process for every single character. So aside from the ones who, like Eugene's group, that already went through this process, we have not seen anything of that for Daryl or Carol or Rosita. Like any of our main cast characters, we haven't seen any of that for them for getting onboarded into the Commonwealth. Now, one part of the main meat of this episode is the combat trials that Daryl and Rosita undergo, where Mercer sets up people in pairs and they have to clear little houses of walkers, essentially just to get them combat ready or just to like test their skills, how they are. There was probably one of my favorite parts of this episode, just from I this is something I will deeply miss when this show is over. The creativity with the zombie kills. They're fucking incredible. For example, there's a scene in this episode where Rosita sidekicks a walker onto the ground, rips its leg off of its body, and then uses like the sharp end of its bone to impale it and kill it, like stab it in the head. It was such a cool kill. It almost makes me miss doing the reaction videos, because I had like an audible like fuck yeah moment when she did that, and it was really, really cool. Daryl goes more lone wolf, and Mercer berates him a little bit like that, and probably more from the angle that he is kept in a very fine line at the Commonwealth. Like, he doesn't go outside the boundaries, and he's seeing Daryl go outside the boundaries, so he's like, don't go outside the boundaries because there will be consequences. One of those consequences, we see the spoiled ass of Sebastian, a notorious character from the comics, but making himself more and more well known in the show portion of things, as there's a scene where he's like testing different weapons. He doesn't know how to use any of them, like the Morning Star weapon that Daryl uses in the battle against the Whisperers. Like, he's trying to use it, and he's like, what the heck is this thing? This thing's stupid. How would you ever use this in combat? Like, just, being dumb with it. He tries to take on a walker, can't do it. It's interesting that his mom, we actually do see Pamela Milton, the governor of the Commonwealth, and I don't know if she was hunting. It looked like she was hunting. Because she was carrying a rifle, and she had some of her soldiers with her. And she witnesses her son not being able to kill the walker. So I'm not sure what the dynamic is between mother and son. I don't know. Like, does she think he's weak, that he needs to train more? Is she spoiling him and coddling him and is just turning the other cheek because she has more important things to tend to? I don't really know what the whole angle is. And keep in mind, like, a lot of this stuff is going to be original because so much of the comics with the Commonwealth was Rick talking politics with Pamela Milton. Like, there's scenes of him, he tours and like takes her to every single civilization that they have in the Alexandria area. Now, of course, it's reversed in the show because Alexandria is in such a pile of shit, and the hilltop was essentially burned down. It looks like they're going to rebuild it, so the hilltop's not completely abandoned. So it looks like with the help of the Commonwealth, they're going to resurrect the hilltop, and bolster up Alexandria. So it's different. And more of the action is placed on the Commonwealth, as it should be, because this is our next and also last faction that we have to deal with in its entirety. So we need to see all facets of it. And again, like, it felt like I was going to the first point that I brought up in this video. It felt like I was almost watching like a political show, because there's a lot of, what does Lance Hornsby want, being the kind of second in command. And then there's Pamela Milton, obviously, as the governor, who's trying to suppress any rebellion or outcry. They're not pronounced with any of these ambitions yet, but you can tell that there's angles from everybody within the Commonwealth of where does the power lie. It's almost like a mini Game of Thrones in a sense. Like who within this mini civilization, where does the power lie? And because it's so much bigger and so much more defined than anything we've ever had, the stakes are higher, right? Because anything that we had before was very small and contained. Like, it was more, it was more tribal communities before. Even when the war with the Saviors was over, and you had, before Rick was taken in the helicopter, you had those brief episodes where there was the peace with the remaining Saviors, and you had Oceanside and Kingdom and Alexandria, like Hilltop. You still had part of the Sanctuary functioning. Like, you had all of the communities running in some way. And it felt more like a tribe, though. There was a very loose order that held that together. It was basically the leadership of a couple of people who just had to make the best decisions. But there's a legit government in place here with the Commonwealth. And so being able to manipulate the political game has a little bit more heft to it, if that makes sense. It was interesting how the episode started, how there's like a walker chasing Daryl, Judith, and RJ, and then it turns out to just be one of their friends wearing like a zombie mask. Like, it was like a haunted house, which is great because as the viewer, you're immediately thinking that this is some, like, oh no, they're being chased through walkers in a tight corridor. This sucks. I thought it might be a flashback. I didn't know what it was. And then they emerge, and then it's like the revelation, oh, this is the Commonwealth. It's like, oh, well, okay, this sets the stage for what they think of walkers, that they're just like, we can make fun of these things as just, scary beings that, that didn't, topple the entire world that we knew. We're just going to talk about them in a light form. So, again, the ability of the show, which is, again, it's always been good at, redefining how we see walkers. With the Whisperers, it was people wearing masks, and they could manipulate them in very interesting ways. Even Jadis and her scavenger people, the way they used walkers in the, with the in that combat arena with the metal helmets and all the shit. Like, there's just, it's like, what is the most interesting ways we can use our walkers in, rather than just being these husky things that just chase after people. There's ways you can you can manipulate that playground of rules. And the show's always been so good of doing that. And so that first scene truly speaks to it. There is kind of a side plot with Carol trying to get Ezekiel up on the list. And because he's newer, he won't be able to get his treatment really in time. And it's basically, the show is telling you that if he doesn't get moved up the list, he's probably going to die. So Carol, and it's interesting that it's two people I would expect to have an interesting dynamic, Carol and Lance Hornsby, because they're almost like foils of each other, because Lance is a very cunning, manipulative political guy, and Carol is the same, of how she's been able to wear masks and disguise who she really is. Alpha was really the only villain that kind of got the better of her, that was really her match, I'd say, of any of the villains we ever had. She never had interactions with Negan during the war with the Saviors, and that was more Rick and Negan that were the two opposites. And then I guess not having Rick there, it allowed Carol and Alpha to have that dynamic when she came along. But it's Carol goes and gets this wine that's outside the city limits, and uses it to impress for the party that they have at the end of the episode. So it'll be interesting to see as Lance maybe lets his guard down, like if he trusts her a little bit more with certain responsibilities, like how far will that go? So we'll see if there truly is like a horizon for where things can go in that regard. And then I'd say the meat of the episode would probably be that final, like the holy shit scene, the soldier in that bonus episode with Princess, the one that gets out-dueled by, well, he just gets like outsmarted by Princess. They demote him from a soldier just to like a server. So I guess it's like, hey, like if you suck at your job, you not only get fired, it's not like you get put on, bathroom duty for a week. You get your entire rank and job outright stripped, and now you're down to, it's just so, it feels like for him, like there's no kind of coming back from that. And he makes a move at the party, destroys a painting that Pamela Milton had. I don't know if it was of her dad or of her husband who founded the place, but, destroys that, just because there's one scene where he's trying to talk to her and she just doesn't even acknowledge his existence. And it's like, again, it's another scene where I was thinking to myself, like, we've never seen this in The Walking Dead before, where one character doesn't even acknowledge another character, because caste system, I'm the top dog, you're just a at the end of the line bitch. Even Negan in The Saviors, Negan would at least indulge, because he loved to talk, so he would at least indulge some random person below him. In fact, he liked to extrapolate everything from that person in order to get their best self. Like, he loved turning people into his soldiers, so even if they were some, little weakling, like, he loved the pride of turning them into a badass just like him, and then they would say, that they're Negan, and that was his, pride as that kind of warlord figure. And so, but this is different where, civilized society, it's like the president of the United States interacting with some, I'm trying to find like a store clerk in like a small town, like there's just, obviously I'm sure the president, like on a tour or something will want to look good to the public, but like a behind closed doors, like not in a heartbeat, would the president have such a, like casual interaction and discussion if it wasn't booked and on time and it's with proper figures. So you get a lot of that flashback to how people were just, like money and power gives you the ability to just treat people like shit. And this is very much an extension of that. So he goes crazy, I don't know that, I'm pretty sure that's the real Stephanie. I'm still trying to figure out, that's probably going to be in the next episode that Eugene is in, where we're going to figure out what the fuck this whole Stephanie mystery thing is. So he takes that woman, her secretary, hostage, and then Daryl chases after him. The guy almost commits suicide, but Daryl, like, talks him down. And then fucking Sebastian shows up, and Daryl, being very astute, hands the guy over to Sebastian and says, no, this is your victory. Here, go take the dude and go, sing and dance in the rain, because you're going to look like a hero to your mom. So it shows that Daryl learned the lesson from in my opinion, he learned what Mercer was trying to explain to him at the beginning. Like, you got to be a team player. And he did that not necessarily in the combat sense, but he did it in terms of the society. He realized where the power was and was like, all right, I'll hand over this guy to this little punk kid who wants to look powerful even though he's a little bitch. And yeah, it was a smart move, and it shows, Daryl's very aware of the situations, and I don't know if there's going to be a schism between our characters, and now that would be a very interesting way for the show to kind of reach a big climax, because again, like I said, like, some of our characters have lesser jobs than some of our other characters. So within the Alexandria group, is there going to be a split down the middle of people who have the good jobs versus the shitty jobs, and people who support the caste system, people who don't? There's obviously a rebellion underneath the hood. That's the final scene of this episode, when Rosita finds this hidden room, this hidden rebel room. And you don't really know, like, is there someone in charge? Like, you don't really know what the origins of this is. There's a reference that there's a whole bunch of people who have rebellion on the mind. but you don't know the extent like of like how far that's going to go. So you're kind of just left thinking to yourself, all right, well, this will get explained later, but where will it involve our characters? Are there other characters? And so that's one thing that intrigues me. Are we going to have this conflict with some of our own characters? Like, will there be actual conflict between these people that have fought and bled for each other in Alexandria through multiple conflicts? And now the, now this society has thrown them against each other. I think that will be interesting to dive into. But overall, a good episode. It was an intriguing one. Like, it was very different, and I imagine we have other characters that are on the outside, Negan and Leah being two of the biggest ones who aren't connected to the Commonwealth at all. I am hoping that change. Like, I imagine Negan will be brought into the Commonwealth situation at some point. In the comics, he's not. So I got a little nervous last episode when he went off on his own. But I know they have more scenes for him. He's one of our main characters now. Like, he is the cast, and part of, one reason people keep watching, because he's such a, he's a changed character, but he's still that charismatic dude. So we have things on the outside that can give us a break from the Commonwealth if the episodes start to feel too familiar, but I'm interested to see if they'll get introduced, because the Commonwealth is in the area. Like, they're with Alexandria, with the Hilltop. Like, they're not leaving. Like, their presence is in the region, and sooner or later, Negan will probably bump into him. I'm just kind of interested to see like what his reaction to that will be, because we don't get that in the comic, and I'm really hoping that there's a version of that we see in the show. So 9 out of 10 for this episode, though. Fun stuff, different tone. Looking forward to where we go from here. As always, if you guys have comments, feel free to leave them below. I might make a vlog this week talking about, and a lot of people have already discussed it, that there was a photo that surfaced of Andrew Lincoln with a fan in Atlanta. There's rumors, like, it's not confirmed, but there's rumors of him filming. The fact that he's in Atlanta, like, he's from London, like, United Kingdom. So why would you fly all the way to Atlanta, maybe just to see his buddies filming the show? Or maybe he's actually filming. Like, I would very much hope that he has at least one or two scenes at the end that kind of connect everything together. Because, I mean, that's what's going to give you your payoff. And it's unfortunate that this is going to come. It's almost like the Game of Thrones show being released before the final two books, so because like the movies aren't going to be out until because the show's going to wrap up, and we'll still have the loose end with the movies, and will there be a resolution with Rick before then? So again, that's discussion for another day, but the episode was fun, cool. Fun seeing Judith playing with like records and stuff, like everyone doing normal stuff, like normal everyday stuff you would see in an everyday society, and it's just so normal, and our characters with that time jump deal with it in a normal way. Like, they're just like, yep, this is normal, we just do this, we just go about doing this, and we interact with these people. It's just kind of like their way of life, and it's intriguing. It is. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Appreciate your viewership as always. And be sure to comment, rate, and subscribe. And I'll have my next review out next week. Thanks, guys.